If you're still making keyrings one at a time, you're wasting time. Let me show you the faster way. Okay, so we'll start by cutting out our outlines. So I've got my basic outline and I'll just make a grid array. And I'll see how many will fit into one sheet. There we go, now we load the machine. So we get our height and we're good to start cutting. Alright, so cutting is complete. Now we'll take everything out of the machine. I like to give a quick vacuum everywhere where we need to get some dust out, where it accumulates during cutting. Alrighty, over to the F1 Ultra. So I'll just remove the cup jig. As you can see, I did a cup earlier, because I'm not going to do any cups today. So there's a couple of ways we can actually do these batches. The first one, I'm going to use the F1 Ultra batching system. So just fit this bracket. I don't know if you're familiar with these. And then you can literally just secure the batching conveyor with 2 screws. Now be very careful with these cables. They are shockingly fragile. And yeah, ask me how I know. So we are going to start with only one design. You turn your output on for the cut line as well, so you can get a proper outline when you frame. Now we need this first one moderately straight. Now we can turn off the cut layer, as we're not going to be cutting, and we only turn on the engraving layer. Make sure of your settings, and then we swap over to batch engraving using the conveyor. You need to drag these lines to outline your object perfectly that you want to engrave on. Now there's drawbacks to using this. I found it's not always as accurate and you need to be online to do it. So if you lose connection to the server, that's it, you're done. You're waiting for them to get back online to continue. I did run into a bit of a problem with the batch engraving later on, and this actually led to me making this video a bit longer, showing you the different way of doing this as well. Originally I was just going to do the whole batching system thing. If you run into issues with the conveyor, or you simply don't have the conveyor attachment, then the next option is definitely for you. The main issue I had with the conveyor system was that sometimes it would lose track of the orientation of your keyrings, even though I packed everything in exactly the same orientation, and it will flip my design on its side or upside down. So I ended up actually going with the jig method, because I know then there's no way that it cannot be in the right orientation. I made this like little right angle ruler jig for my F1 Ultra. And I just cut it on my S1 to fit the base. So first we just set the height, or focus height. And then you simply pack in, well, I packed in 9, you could probably have fitted in at least 8 more, but I was happy with that. Then we swap over to process on a flat surface, and we only need to position the first one correctly. You'll see what I mean just now. So we'll use the camera to get it close, and then I'll use the framing feature, leaving the cut line also enabled, to line it up perfectly. Now you simply need to make a grid array and just make sure that the spacing in between is at 0. And then it's as simple as disabling your red layer or your cut layer and just leaving the engraving layer, and you should have a perfect template. The other big advantage is you're not going to use smart layers, which will reduce the time it takes to engrave one of these considerably. You'll see the way that it engraves now if you're not familiar with smart layering. But take my word, it's about half as fast or half as slow as the normal scanning method. I end up actually finishing the last ones on the jig much quicker than I was doing it with a conveyor system. Especially if you factor in the time it takes to set up the conveyor system as well. That's why I did a whole video on this as well, why I prefer using jigs to all fancy other fluff stuff. In its simplicity, this is actually so simple, you really can't make a mistake. If you take the time it takes to replace all of these now with blanks, you're pretty much using the same amount of time that you did waiting for the conveyor, maybe a little bit faster. The ruler is just cut from MDF, but if I have some metal work done again at a local laser cutting place, I will have them cut me one out of aluminium. So what do you do if you don't have a strange shape, not your normal square? So I still batch these in pretty much the same fashion. The only thing that you're going to do differently is you're going to put a block around your whole design, which you also cut out. And that block will be used to line these up perfectly on the Ultra using exactly the same jig setup. Just remember the spacing in between these, how much you had it. You'll see what I mean just now. So there's our block. Now we can actually just center everything inside of it. I like changing my layer colors to red for cuts, and I'll use black or dark blue for engraving. Now we'll have the S1 cut these out for us quickly. So as you can see, we can now use the same piece of offcut as a jig to hold all our round shaped tags in place. And now it's the same story. Get one, line it properly, use the same settings you use to actually do your cutting for your spacing. So we'll just use the camera to get it close, and then we do the normal framing again. Make sure that we get the first one perfect. I use 2mm spacing on the cut line. So when I space these, I'll just do 2mm spacing again. That should give me the perfect alignment. So yeah, I'm just nudging it with the arrow keys while the design is selected so I can get that perfect alignment. Don't know if you know, but if you hold in shift and you use an arrow key, it moves it by 1mm. And if you don't hold in shift, it moves it by 0.1mm. I'll create exactly the same grid array we did in the previous one. We turn off the cut layer as we're not going to be cutting anything. And then you should only be needing to hit engrave and let it go. I forgot the smart layer on this. That's why it took a bit longer than I would have liked. But hey, once it's going, it's going. So we'll just leave it like that. I'll let this job finish quickly. There's a bit of backstory. The logo design is for a quiz team at a local high school. So everybody that made the team is getting one of these little key rings that they can carry as a memento. Now we're using exactly the same offcut to position all the back sides, exactly the same as the previous one. So a little pro tip, don't now go and change these designs or delete them and do a new one, whatever. Rather select everything and copy it, and then create a second canvas. Once you paste it in here, you can go and check on canvas 1 what the positioning were on the X and Y, and you can duplicate that on the second canvas, which will put your engraving in exactly the same spot as on canvas 1. So this way now you can edit this to your heart's content. If you make a mistake, you've got a perfect copy that you just can go and get another copy off of if you need to. And that's it. So on this side, all I want is the border and the cut line. I don't want to move my cut line, so I'll just lock the vector in place. Now we can only select the black. So I'll select everything and ungroup and then also release it. And set it to scroll so that we can actually see what we want to select, and I'll just select everything I don't want in here and then delete it. So we'll just turn the black layer now into compound vector and you can hit engrave. Now you still have your nice outline in place, and now we can start with the text. So the text I'm going to split into two. I'm going to turn all the stuff that's going to be the same on each and every one of those black, and then I'll make a blue layer for the one variable, which will be a different name on each and every one of them. So just bear with me while we quickly actually just space these correctly, and then we can get going. You'll see I was just using copy and paste so that I can keep the same formatting and all the text. Just a bit of a time saving. So I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but this is just the way I do it. So now we just space them out and then we actually move it into position. And of course, for the first one, you use the longest name so you can get your spacing correct. You'll see I just decided to space them a little bit. You can only move up to one text and then select all of them and redistribute, so they will all fall between the upper and the lower text. So this is all very basic stuff, so I'm just zooming through it quickly. If you don't know how to use the text tool, there's a lot of tutorials on this. Not by me though, but yeah, a lot of people have done it to death. So once we're happy with the design, all you need to do now is create a grid array. And you'll see that I made a mistake here. You'll see what it is. Look closely. Yep, I forgot to turn on the red layer. So spacing is at 2 millimeters, but it's only spacing the black layer. So we'll undo, we'll release or unlock the red layer. Now we can select everything and we'll make a grid array out of that. So if you leave your spacing now at 2 millimeters, it should be exactly the same. And they should just be engraving normally. There we go. So of course now before you engrave, you just have to turn off your red layer again. So you don't want to have a score line running around on the outside of your jig. And then you can engrave. So all that's left now is to change the names. This is made easy because I just copy and paste it out of the WhatsApp message that the client sent with the names. So if there's a spelling error or anything now, it's not on me. So again, very basic stuff. It's a bit tedious, but yeah. Okay, and we're ready to engrave. Let's get to it. Now, usually I would have turned on the smart layer for this type of engraving. I actually forgot it here. So that's why we were still doing this whole linear engraving thing. And this is unnecessarily slow, especially if you're doing text. I find that the smart layer actually gives you a better color contrast if you're doing normal brown MDF like I'm using here. So test it on your different materials. I haven't tested it on basswood and all that now as well, but I'm sure it will make a difference. And it is definitely a lot faster in most cases. That smart engraving is usually about twice as fast as normal linear engraving. But we'll let this finish quickly. So the client asked me to do one more afterwards, after I already started, and I always make at least one extra that I keep as a sample for future reference. So, because I like to show clients what else I've actually done in the past. So, although it's very straightforward, all you have to do is change two of these names and then just deselect or turn off the ones you're not going to be using. And you can use exactly the same jig for that. This time I also remember to turn on smart layer. So you'll see that it engraves a little bit different, and I'm going to leave this now at real-time speed so you can see exactly how quickly this actually engraves. And I think you can actually already pick up that you can save quite a bit of time doing it this way. The only place I don't like using this is on color engraving. Even on stainless steel with normal black text and everything, this saves you so much time and it does a very good job. But with color engraving, you might get lines in your engraving when you do it, so I wouldn't suggest Smart on that. Unless someone has found a way to do it much cleaner than I could. But for me, in my testing, it didn't work out well. And just like that, we're done. So this is the end result. I use this white MDF so much. It's cheap, it cuts beautifully. People really seem to like these. You can make something really cost effective. So 4 different styles, all on white MDF, clean, simple, and ready to impress. I guess nothing says I care as much as a keyring that smells like burned wood. Stay well, guys, and if you're still here, thanks for watching to the end. Cheers.